Welcome to another episode of Discovering Disruptions in Tech. I'm your host, Howard Holton, and I'm here today with my guest, Mohan. We are going to chat for a little bit today about kind of AI, truth or fiction, right?
That's right, Howard. I think this has been, I guess, top of mind for so many people immersed in tech. It seems to be the hot thing, and stuff is changing every week. Sometimes every day there's something new. And like literally yesterday, I'm sure you kept up with it. Luma.ai announced something which seemed like a game changer, but it's going to be a flash in the pan before the next thing comes along in 2 days, and then we'll kind of move on to that shiny new toy. But the things that we envisioned were impossible are now starting to look like they're possible, but it seems to be like very early days. It's all very raw, right? It's still very incomplete in many ways, but yeah, it's fascinating to live through these times.
Oh, for
The
sure.
technologies, yeah.
It really feels to me like the printing press, right? When the printing press first came out, it could not have been easy, right? There was one, it was probably broken more often than it worked. You know what I mean? And they're trying to figure out, like, how do I scale this? How do I turn it into something that produces more than one book? How do I speed up the process of doing all the typesetting, right? Like what's the right mix? How do I make it so it's not so fragile? How do I train people so that they don't have to have a, what the equivalent of a doctoral in machinery was at the time? And AI kind of feels the same way today, right? It feels like, holy crap, who let the normies in is the first thing that it feels like, right? Like AI has been around for a long time, but it's always been this thing that was kind of too well controlled, right? But now with Gen AI, everybody's talking about AI, and they're talking about AI in a way where you go, "Ooh, wow, Dunning-Kruger effect at work here," but also you don't really know what you're talking about, and the expectation is that every technologist has a good, clean, clear answer about AI. So I think it's an interesting time for sure.
Absolutely. And I think we're seeing so many things personally. I think if you're dabbling with tech as a person curious about technology, I think you might personally experience a bunch of these in products that you use yourself. I'll just give an example. Just a couple of days ago, Howard, we did a long 1 hour recording, and I had a lot of passwords as I heard the recording. It was so bad that I wanted to strip it out, but I couldn't find those passwords. Do I spend 5 hours manually stripping it out? Then I found this piece of software which had some AI magic inside. It found it and it stripped it out. I said, "Holy cow! This has saved me 5 hours of time."
Yeah, in like
I'd
2 minutes,
gladly pay $100.
right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
2 minutes, it's just gone, as though it
Exactly.
never existed before, right?
Exactly.
The precipice that we are on the edge of has so much potential, right? Did you read the story of the song? Was it a commercial that was redubbed in Russian by AI?
I haven't seen that. This
They did.
is brand new.
This is like a week ago. So ancient in the AI world, but brand new in the real world, right? Where
and they dubbed it live, like they just took the English things and
they took the English thing, they put it in, they said convert it to Russian and sent it back out the other side. It resynced the lips to the Russian. And I think it was a song because it made the song sound correct with the Russian translation. Like it still matched the lips, it still matched the tempo, it still matched the beat, it still matched like the song structure, but it was in Russian.
Very interesting,
right?
Yeah, this is going to open some very interesting doors. On one side you have the good things. I mean, imagine you could use the same tech for so many nefarious things as well, right? It's going to be an interesting time for sure.
I mean, the security risks are enormous, and you're not going to stop them, right? On one hand, you have all the impersonation and all the stuff that comes along with it, right? On the other hand, you have the impersonation and all the stuff that comes with it, right? So like, think of a world where you could feed all of the information you have about your parents into it, and your parents will exist in a computer system forever.
That'd be kind of cool.
It's right. Like you could talk to them, like
Mhm.
us. We're probably the first generation where there's enough data about us to actually make that real. Right? It would look like us, it would sound like us, it would speak like us, and it would have all of the information that's ever been put in a computer about us that you could then ask questions and interact with. Think of what that would mean for your children or your grandchildren or your great grandchildren, right? For retaining those memories and revisiting them.
Oh yeah,
Right.
it'd be great. I mean, imagine if I could talk to Plato or
Right.
Socrates. I mean, like, or Alexander the Great. I mean, that would be,
Right.
and if it's close to real, that'd be mind blowing.
Right. At
Uh,
the same
yeah.
time, people are still falling for the whole text messages to say, "Hey, this is your CEO. Please go buy me some gift cards." Right? And that's going to go from a number you don't recognize in a voice you don't recognize using language that doesn't make any sense, like your CEO would never misspell those 12 words,
Mhm.
to this comes from the number, it's got like it's a voice call or a video call, it looks like your CEO, it sounds like your CEO, it's words they would use, still fake, because you still have to be smart enough to know your CEO is not going to ask you to go to Target and buy gift cards.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
and think about it, Howard. Like a lot of this stuff, the data is out there in a sense. There's, if someone searches for me, they'll find a bunch of videos. Or same thing with you. They'll be able to get your voice. They have all the information they need in public domain to train the model to impersonate.
100%. A
Yeah.
100%, which means you cannot stop it,
Mm.
right? Pandora's box is open. Pandora's box can eat all of the data available on the internet, right? So unless you're turning the internet off, you cannot stop this. So what we have to do instead is we have to become a whole lot smarter,
Mm.
right? We have to become more vigilant. We have to become more doubting, just more critical, right? And start asking the question we should have asked from the beginning, which is not, is that my CEO? But really, would my CEO ever ask that question?
Mm.
Right?
Yeah, it's gonna. I think that's gonna demand a change in human nature, right? I think by nature, as human beings, we are trained all our life to react a certain way, and now it's just gonna be, I gotta be different. And how do I do that? Yeah, you'll
Yeah,
struggle to transition for sure.
for sure. I think, but once we get to the other side of it, not only like the internet did what the printing press set out to do, right? The printing press set out to democratize information. Before the printing press, the only way you got a book was you bought it from a scribe from the church. The church
Mm.
controlled the scribes, right? And so that was it. The church controlled the transfer of that knowledge. The printing press changed that. You no
Mm.
longer needed a scribe, and therefore anyone could get their hands on a book.
Mm.
And as the printing press became more and more popular, you could get your hands on every book, right? And so the democratization of information happened then. The internet really took that to a whole different level. It
Mm.
democratized information, then it democratized communication,
Mm.
right? Anyone with a connection to the internet could communicate with anyone else in the world who also had a connection to the internet, right? And all of a sudden, our worlds became small, and our ability to communicate became vast and kind of unmeasured,
Mm.
right? And it broke down these walls. AI's got the ability to do that for creativity, right? At its
Yeah.
most basic form today, it's an always-on, 24/7, of always available tutor that will teach you using the language and the methods that you respond best to. Even if nothing else, that's incredible.
Yeah. No, that's right. I think Howard. I think it feels like we are. I think what people are demonstrating and showing right now, they look exactly like demos, right? Like they seem like they are in their kindergarten phase.
Yes.
They're very task oriented. Like the example I took about, hey, you could strip out the passwords from my video. It's a task. But man, the job of me having to create that video and post it, I had a plan for it and get that out. I wish AI could take that over. That'll be nice. I just talk to it and say, can you please do this? And it somehow figures out a way to do it. That'll be nice. I think that will be when there'll be a game changer.
What I mean, it kind of can today, right? I've got a workflow that manages my social media with almost no interaction from me.
It's an autopilot.
It finds content, it downloads the content, it sends me questions, it rewrites the content, it posts the content.
Oh my God, Howard, I got to steal that.
Right. There's an AI tool right now that'll take long form video recordings and break them up into short form and auto post and prepare that for auto posting for you as well. You are absolutely correct. Right now, some of the best use cases for AI are these very small, very well defined tasks. Right. Like you said, right. Remove the pause words. In reality, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. And it's a good thing because we keep seeing people leap before they look, right? Like the car dealerships. There were 3 different car dealerships. One was a Ford dealership that had an AI chatbot for sales that was convinced that it was in fact a Tesla AI bot and started selling the Tesla cars versus the Ford cars. Then it was different dealerships, same kind of thing, was convinced that it was a Fisker chatbot and started selling in Fiskers. Then there was the GMC chatbot that sold a Yukon for $1, right? And then there was the Air Canada issue where the Air Canada chatbot hallucinated an entire bereavement policy. The customer followed the bereavement policy, and Air Canada, of course, said, no, we're not paying that because that's not our policy. He took it to court and won. This is my favorite of the kind of recent stupid people stories. Took it to the court, and the Canadian court said, Air Canada, you lose. You lose. It's your chatbot. You can't blame the chatbot maker. You did it. The customer followed the instructions they were given, just the same as the chat previously. It's not for them to keep track of whether you're using an AI or not, and whether the AI would lie or not. So pay the man. And this made international news, right? So you run a company, right? You've made a mistake with AI, and there's the potential that becomes public record. How much money would it take? Like, what's the value to you of making sure that doesn't become public record? Because once you're sued, you can settle. And if you settle, it doesn't become public record, right? Like the case may, but it's dismissed. So, right? So what is like a dollar amount? For me, like if it's just my personal reputation, let's say it's $1,000. Let's say it's $5,000, still probably reasonable, right? This is Air Canada. They're what, $100 million business, $1 billion business, a $5 billion business? They make way more than I do. Their reputation should be more valuable than me. Now, I want to say it was like $812 Canadian that he sued for. And they took it to court and they lost in the court. So now they've even given the precedent to the court that now the court knows what to say for like $812. Right? So not only are people making ridiculous kind of things with AI, but they're then taking ridiculous action afterwards.
So in a nutshell, essentially, I think what he's saying is it's okay that we probably don't want to be too far ahead on our skis yet because we don't know.
Yes, we don't want to be too far ahead of our understanding, and we don't want to let third parties, right, consultants, convince us that they know more than they do either, right? So we have to add this level of vigilance to what we do, but also AI is not leaving; it's here to stay. It will be here forever. I'm convinced in the future, AI will be how we interact with technology.
Yeah, that could actually be helpful. Like, one of my friends at a party was telling me something interesting yesterday. He said, "Man, I spend so much time micromanaging my investments. I wish there was a way for me to dump my, logic and formula into something that I can talk to, because sometimes you get tips and ideas along the way, right? It's kind of hard to come back, log in, and change things and all of that. So he just wanted to talk to it and say, hey, what do you think of that? What do you think of this? He wanted, like, as if he's talking to some human being, get ideas, and the formula keeps evolving with that. That would be really cool if such a thing existed. Right now, as a piece of website or an app.
Sure. I think we're a little bit of. Yeah. I think we're hopefully a little bit away from that. The experience that I've seen with AI trading, where people develop AI trading bots, it's a great way to lose $10,000. Right? It's kind of like playing craps at the casino. If you sit at the casino or roulette, right? If you just play red or black, eventually you will just have $0.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of what I've seen. That does not, like, today is not representative of tomorrow, though. And that's an important thing to understand in AI. When in like November of 2021, 2022, when most of these, when OpenAI released the public version of ChatGPT for the first time and everybody jumped on it, it couldn't do math. Right? Which makes sense. It's a large language model, not a large math model or a large research model. Right? And so it would hallucinate kind of continually. And if it didn't have an easy answer to something, it just made up a response. It generated language, large language model, to provide a response that answered the question. Right? Today, it's really good at math. Right? Today, it's really good at math.
It learns, yeah, and it's exponential learning in some ways.
It's not only that it learns, but we also learn what people are using AI for, and then the models get tuned, the models get improved, even to the point where there are specific helper models that focus on math, helper models that focus on programming code, right? So it goes, hey, this seems like it's a programming task. Let's send it over to that model. We'll use that model, and then we'll respond back, and we'll give you the bumper text with the code from the code model, or the bumper text with the math from the math model, right? And that has happened in a very short period of time compared to prior technology. So that's the other thing to kind of keep in mind, right? What it can't do today, it maybe can do tomorrow, right? But if we get in front of our skis, the risk goes up exponentially.
So essentially, I think the net is, it is not it's a decision augmentation system, better fit for that right now, rather than implementing a workflow with automation where it could mess up and then you're left holding the bag potentially.
Yeah, I mean, human in the loop, human in the loop, human in the loop, and human in the loop. Right? Like, you still have to keep humans there to go, hey, like, this is ridiculous, don't do this. Right? Or this makes no sense, or it's just completely wrong. And within AI, we call that onboarding and offboarding. Right? We add things to onboard before it gets to the processes to the onboarding, which is kind of the prompt creation, and then we add processes to the offboarding, which is validating that the AI didn't make something up, that the response matches reality. And whether that's a human in the loop every time, whether that's some other systems, doesn't really matter, right? But it's again getting out beyond our skis, right? The customer doesn't know how to do that. The vendor that provided it, right, the consultant, service provider, or software provider, leapt before they leaped as well and didn't consider the risks. And what you end up with is a risk you didn't mean to take that you're now stuck with. Which is why really good use cases look like simple automations, like, hey, remove pause words from my video. Right. Another really good one is, hey, you know what really sucks is reading error messages. Right. So turn that into natural text that tells me in plain English or whatever language I speak, what does this error message mean? What does it mean to me? What does it mean within the context of my system? And what are the actions I should do to resolve it?
So this, Howard, we have an interesting dichotomy here, right? So we up to now talked a lot about these consumer tech. You and me as consumers, we can make the decision, right? I'm going to use it or not, use it partially or not. But when I'm interacting with a business, let's say a bank or the airline you took, they make decisions with a very different philosophy, right? They're trying to save money, cut costs, improve customer experience, and they may be sold a bag of theory, right? And like probably some entity came and said, use this, it'll save 10 headcount for you and save $1 million. And they push this AI thing on me as a consumer, even though I didn't really want it. It's like how you and I deal with the interactive voice response. Like, you call some number,
sure,
we're stuck in the loop for a while, right? And it never really works. So how do you see businesses, especially CIOs, etc., dealing with this? This is a hard thing for them, right? They have to innovate. They can't stop.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good question, because if you're just the guy that provides technology at your company and you're the CIO, that is not a good position to be in when having these conversations, right? If, however, you're the trusted advisor that uses technology to help the business accomplish its goals, and you're advising on the goals, that's the position that you want to be in. And what I find is too many CIOs fit the first bucket. Too many CIOs are effectively taking orders and executing without understanding what is the business doing, what is the business trying to do, and advising them on the best way to accomplish it. Right? And today, AI is the shiny way, but probably not the best way. Right? And we need to be cautious of that. We need to be attentive to that, and we need to be in a position to steer our organizations towards the best way. Right? And the best way right now better be not to provide something external.
Yeah.
There's a million internal use cases that can increase efficiency and reduce costs and increase productivity and provide value internally that have significantly less risk than shining a light on your lack of technology acumen to your customers.
Gotcha. So something like helping improve the productivity of a human user in a support center 10x, 20x, so they can do the job significantly cheaper and faster. That would be a better, because at least then you have the human in the loop.
So
at least.
Correct. How about an internal process where you add an AI chatbot to your HR system? Right? Give it all your HR forms, give it all your policies, give it all the documentation that you give to a new hire. Put a chatbot in front of that. Now be cautious. If you have a policy, like let's say you have a travel policy and somebody says, hey, what is the travel policy? And the travel policy is, if you're a line employee or a line level manager, you have to take the public bus. But if you're a VP, we fly you first class, right? The optics of that are probably not something you want to reveal. So you probably also need to make sure that whatever system you put in place isn't just reading from the book, but also has context awareness to the person who's asking it. Also, you probably shouldn't have that policy, just for the record. Like that policy shouldn't exist, a bad policy. But that's still a far better, far less risky thing than turning it around to the public and providing similar answers.
I see inadvertent leaks of things that are not easy to be known. Interesting. I never thought of that. Yeah. There's so many possibilities of failures and issues with this introduction. Very interesting. Yeah. Has there been any particular tech you've seen, AI related tech, Howard, that in the last week or two that maybe completely blew your mind? Like you said, holy cow, I did not expect this to happen.
The smartest use of AI recently was a security vendor took CVEs and rewrote them in plain English. And that's it. That's all it did. And it was freaking brilliant because it leveraged the CVE and it leveraged the data about the specific, like me as a customer. And then it just told me, like, this is what this means. This is the impact to you. This is what you need to do. Just those three things.
I see. So it was personalized for my situation, my infrastructure, I see.
Correct. Within their interface, right? So it was really direct. It was really specific, but you didn't have to descramble, 900 pages of BS that you don't really like. Like, I'm not rewriting the code. I bought the software, so I just need to do an update. Right. And so
you would help them answer things like, does it apply to me? What does it mean to me? Do I even have to care about it?
Yep.
I see. Interesting. Yeah. So this would be, that would be a pretty significant implication. It again, a use case where the security person gets insanely more productive because what would have taken them a week. Yeah, exactly.
What takes an hour takes a minute is the kind of thing we're looking for, right? And there's a lot of hours. There's a lot of CVEs. There's a lot of these impacts. And so how do I change that? Another really, really good one was a really simple automation. Company built it using low-code tools. And it was a sales manager that built it for one of his salespeople. He had this salesperson that was so good in the room. Customers loved him in a call. They loved him when he was in person. However, his emails were terrible. He got no response whatsoever and sometimes negative response to his emails. And it wasn't that he was bad intentioned, but he had severe dyslexia. So when he'd write, it made him seem far less professional than he actually was. And so it was the easiest thing in the world. What he did was he created a low-code automation that simply looked for emails in this person's draft folder and rewrote a new draft. Right? And so the person, rather than click the send button, they'd create the email and they'd just save it to the drafts folder. And then they'd go open it from the drafts folder and it'd be completely rewritten to sound much more professional and much more like they would sound in the room or on the phone call, and then sent. And it overnight fixed the problem, and it cost the company like $2. You know what I mean? Like the API calls and everything would probably be $2 for that employee's whole month. And instantly overcame a disability.
And this would be a very sweet use case for sure. This I never thought of. Yeah, this is a condition that people struggle with, and yeah, it helps them overcome some limitations they have. I mean, it's like a wheelchair for a situation like that. Wow. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So you speak English is probably not your first language, and you speak English very well. But think about when you're learning English, like when you're a young man and you're learning English and you're interacting in the business world and using English, how nice would it have been to have something that would just rewrite to overcome that learning, right?
Yeah, what would help me more is, said at work, sometimes I'm interacting with people from other cultures where, like you said, English is not their first language. And I have to slow down substantially, and it kills my brain, right? Because my brain is operating at 100 miles an hour, and my mouth has to slow down, and it's very hard to deal with that. So if that's a way by which you imagine is live translation. I mean, I lived through this once in Japan.
We're minutes away from live translation. Like we are so close to live translation in 80 languages that it's ridiculous. Right, where you will talk to someone through AirPods effectively, right? So you'll talk with your AirPods in, they'll talk with their AirPods. I'm using AirPods as an example. It's not an Apple thing, right? And so what you'll say will be in whatever language you want to say it in, and what they say will be in whatever language they say it in. You'll hear it in the language you want to hear, and they'll hear it in the language they want to hear. And we are within the AI terms, we are right there. Right? Most of that can be done today. The AI models, what's interesting is the AI models will all be better at different languages than the other AI models. And so there's a little bit of that, is it good enough at Korean and French within the same model to do Korean and French in the same model kind of thing, right? And so there'll be some of that we still have to overcome, but it's so close to having live translation that it's insane. Now, what's the delay to get to the internet and back? What's the network delay? What's the processing delay? Like all of those things are still going to be at play for a little while. But as the devices we carry in our pockets become better, as we build better small or medium language models instead of large language models, so the sizes get smaller and we're able to run more of this stuff locally, that will help immeasurably, right? We're very, very close to live translation. Milliseconds of delay.
Yeah, I think definitely. I would agree. I mean, I haven't really listened to the latest announcement at Apple WWDC. They seem to have announced some interesting things on the devices. I mean, they had the power to move the needle with maybe 1 billion devices in like 2 years, right? As people cycle through that, God knows what that would mean to the industry. When suddenly everybody experiences new things that we didn't just comprehend, and we'll see that in 2 years.
Well, the Apple one's actually super interesting because as everyone's going to find out, it requires a lot of processing power to make these work, right? So even for Apple, owning the silicon for a large number of years, it's only their most recent devices, the 15 Pro and the 15 Max for phones, that will be able to run these models. Maybe the 14 Max. I'm unsure there. I don't have the models memorized. I don't work for Apple, so I'm going to ask for a pass from everybody. But it's only the latest devices that are able to run the models. Now, what's neat about this is, one, sure, it's going to drive some people to upgrade their phone, like this will be the trigger thing. Fine. But also, it gives us an opportunity to see what is the actual advantage, what is this differentiation, and does this differentiation matter? As in, if you're running the old Siri versus the new Siri, is it that much better? Is it actually worth it? And that feedback loop goes from yesterday I ran the old Siri to today everybody runs the new Siri, versus I've got a whole group of people running the new Siri versus a whole group of people running the old Siri. And so I've got this real level of parallelism that I don't normally have in this process, to see, is this actually worth it? Is it differentiated? And then that'll reflect back to the market. And I think it's going to, uh, a flood rises all ships, or one of those things. I think this is going to be one of those things that helps up level the entire world around what works, what doesn't, what's a good use case, what's a bad use case, what are things that people find sticky, they do a lot of and they continue to do it, versus what are things that people find to be a novelty, they do it once or twice and go, I don't really care about that. And then I'm super interested about what was a novelty yesterday, because it didn't really work that well, to now it works really well and it's no longer a novelty. It's now something that's enduring. I'm really interested to see what happens. And I don't think there's many companies that are in a better position to do that than Apple.
Yeah, I think so too. I think someone was commenting that just with their launch, they probably would have killed around 5-6 AI companies, or made them irrelevant, on a path to irrelevance at least, because of the announcement, how that would improve on what these guys had as a specialty product. Yeah, I think this is the power of these big companies, vertically integrated companies. They can absolutely do that. Yeah, definitely interesting times for sure. I'm actually personally interested in seeing how AI can help the builders. Because today, I think, the developers and all of that, I think it seems too complicated. It seems like we are perhaps in Stone Age, where we are, writing code, testing code. It sounds scientific, but it seems too raw. I wonder if AI can transform that area too. I mean, I haven't seen, other than Copilot and a few other things, I haven't seen any transformative things yet. But low code is the other end of the spectrum.
Sure.
The middle is what I am interested in.
For sure. I think, like, I'm really excited to see what AI can do for testing. Like, I'm more interested in AI for software testing than I am for software development, because we tend to spend too little money in AI testing. We tend to spend too little money in kind of penetration testing and security testing and QA. But if I can automate a lot of that with AI and then send it to my tester, or send it to my security tester, or send it to whoever, and go, hey, take a look at this section of code. The rest of it looks good. Take a look at these 3 places. The rest of it looks good. If I could rapidly identify the low-hanging fruit using AI, then I get a massive multiplier, and I'll likely see a reduction in the areas that matter. And maybe first generation is just the AI analyzes the code without additional analytics. But what if I could also feed in user analytics, right? And go, hey, here's the 7 most used features. So within the 7 most used features, the AI is going to spend more time. And rather than looking for the low-hanging fruit, look for a high level of completion of testing. Whereas in the rest of the application, it goes, okay, cool. Here, we're just going to do the 80th percentile because people aren't using these features yet.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah, that's such a subjective decision that again may be the human in the loop kind of helping make the decision, because it may not have that detail.
For sure.
Yeah.
But again,
have you seen anything other than Copilot, Howard? Like, I mean, Copilot is the furthest I've seen. I haven't seen any testing companies really do anything meaningful yet.
I haven't seen any automated testing companies that are touting their AI that are really showing me how. I've seen a lot of theory. Right, we plan on doing this, but I haven't seen actual, like, boots on the ground. Right, the, like, rubber meets the road. This is how it actually works. This is the improvement. We've done some A/B testing. Its efficacy is much higher than the QA tester. Like, that sort of stuff. I haven't really seen that testing yet. I'm looking forward to it, and I think this is near field. I think this is stuff that by the end of 2025, I think this will be super common within the kind of testing frameworks and development frameworks, right?
Yeah, this leads to some interesting situations. Like, like, I don't know if you have this, but I mean, I have a kid at uni, so I meet a lot of her friends and all of that at uni, and some of them and their parents do ask, man, is what I'm studying now, what I'm preparing for, is it going to be relevant in 10 years? seems like a hard decision, and it's so hard to give advice. Yeah.
I mean, yes, yeah, but it's also kind of the same answer I would have given 5 years ago. Is what I'm learning at university for computer science going to be relevant in 10 years? A little bit, right? But the reality is computer science is already the most dynamic industry in the world and has been for 40 years. So if your expectation is I'm going to learn it one time and I don't have to learn anymore, you're in the wrong class. You're in the wrong program. You know what I mean? Like study art history or something. Study Romance languages. They're study Latin. It's dead. It's not going to evolve in 10 years, right? But you chose the most dynamic field to be in. The expectation is you're going to learn every minute of every day until you die.
Yeah, that is true.
You retire, right? So
yeah.
So like fundamentally, I think the question is wrong. The answer that I would give is, it's the same that it was 10 years ago, but now AI is a tool that you can leverage that speeds up your ability to learn. Like someone asked, for those of you that are using AI in your day-to-day lives, I'm one of them. Has it reduced the amount of work that you've done? Like, does it reduce your working hours? My response was, hell no, quite the opposite. I'm now working more than I was before. However, in like let's say I went from 8 hours to 12 hours, which is probably accurate. In those 12 hours, I'm doing what would have taken me 24 hours before. I'm learning faster. I'm producing faster. I'm creating faster. I'm delivering faster, and as good or better on each of those. Right. Plus, I'm more engaged. Right. Like I'm spending more time on the things I care about. I'm spending more time on the things that interest me and excite me than I was before. So
that is, I think what you said is absolutely true. Like the password example I took, Howard. It took me a good hour to understand this new tool, right? Like I didn't believe it first, so I went and kind of read through the text, make sure everything is fine. So yeah, I'm spending time on things, but the next time I do it, it'll be faster. I'll have more trust. But and if I don't do it, well, I'm on a path to irrelevance then, right?
Yeah. So let's kind of talk about that, and then I got one more topic, and then we'll kind of end for the day. We are at the experimentation phase of Gen AI. However, I am fully convinced that Gen AI is going to eat the world. The technology is too enabling. The potential is too good. It's got too much potential to level out things that were hidden behind gilded cages before. So you have to learn how to use it. You have to learn how to interface with it. You have to learn how to get it to make you better. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be a prompt engineer. But today, right now, ask questions of it. Like start using ChatGPT instead of Google Search, or Perplexity is even better, instead of Google Search. Treat it like it's an assistant. Treat it like for the very first time, you have an assistant. Interact with it. Learn what it does well, what it doesn't do well, and learn how to get better with it every day. Would be the advice that I would have, because at some point you're not going to have a choice. And then second, let's talk a little bit about how expensive this stuff is to do. If you're a business and you want AI integrated, at some point you have to build a RAG, you have to do some fine tuning, and you may end up going down the path of building your own models. In order to do all of those things, you're going to really want some GPU access. Right? So to stray away a little bit from the kind of high-level thought stuff, getting access to GPUs, managing that access, running that, and having that where you need it to be, that's a complicated thing to do. Right?
I entirely agree. We are now, I think people have used this term GPU poor, and most people are GPU inefficient. And what I mean by that is you over-allocate it to the people who are not using it right now, and you have no means of getting it back and reallocating to someone else. So someone is starving, even though the other person is kind of,
right.
Doesn't really need it right now. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be tech that'll come along very, very quickly that'll help people broker these, manage these, at least in an enterprise, etc. It also looks like there are alternate tech, Howard. Like we've been, like, for example, I personally have been trying this thing called Grok, which seems to use a very different kind of a tech. But essentially, I think what it comes down to, do you need it for inference, or do you actually need it for training? And it looks like the tech that is needed for training is very different from inference. And most business applications seem to be right now focused on the inferencing part. So could they do it cheaper? Could they do it faster? Can they deliver the same user experience? When I ask a question, I can't wait a minute before it gives me an answer. I mean, it's very frustrating, right?
Right.
I want it to be instant.
Right.
Yeah.
That is one change, right? Like one of the big changes is we're used to getting a near instant answer from technology. Now we're using AI where it's not an instant answer, right? However, I think we just need to shift our thought process and go. We're not replacing the instant availability of tech. That tech still works exactly the way that it did before. What we're replacing is all the things we'd ask another person to do. Right? And that was never instant.
That's
no
true.
matter how fast I send a text message, it's never an instant response. It's just a quick response. The AI is still quicker than that. Right? So I think we just need to shift our minds and stop thinking about it as another piece of instant tech and start thinking about it as a faster person. It's also a dumber person, right? But it's a faster person. And I think that helps. That's been a big shift I've had to do because I also get frustrated. Why can't you answer this quicker? But I think if we just make that shift, I think that'll put us in a far better position.
Yeah. So, on the GPU thing you talked about, Howard, I think we seem to be in the beginning of another shift, which I don't know how real and pervasive this is, but I was just reading a paper 2 days ago. Someone published this thing saying, well, LLMs can be done without GPUs. And here's how. I mean, it's in one of those things that was doing its rounds on Twitter or X.com. It might be early days. It's probably very use case specific, but maybe people will find a way to do things differently. Like, do you really need GPUs, expensive GPUs for everything? Maybe it's possible to do it more efficiently. But maybe time will tell. But for now, yes, people are struggling with access to GPUs. Yeah, I mean, I have a fast Mac. Why can't I do stuff on my Mac? Why do I have to offload that to an expensive system for everything? So I think some of this rationalization hopefully will happen soon, or it's going to slow down the acceleration of this AI, Gen AI stuff. Is my feeling.
For sure. I mean, I will say, today when we talk about AI-enabled GPUs, we're really talking about NVIDIA. Right now, today, at this very moment, right? They lead the pack. However, AMD and Intel and Apple are not to be counted out. Right? Apple doesn't really have an enterprise enterprise product anymore. However, AMD has said they're on the precipice of a release. Intel's new processors have a bunch of NPU cores, neural processing cores for this. Apple's got neural processing cores. I think we're going to see some change here. And we're already seeing change in architecture. So maybe some of this scarcity that's based on NVIDIA being the only provider will go away in the next year or so, which I think I'd personally like to see.
I think it's good for the market to have some competition for sure.
Yeah, competition is always better for the consumer, and we desperately need competition, right? And then there's also providers, right, vendors that are going to help manage that as well. Right. Part of the big challenge is it's not a light switch. You don't do your AI work just in the cloud or just on-prem. Really, you need this mix of those things, right? So you can manage that scarcity and make the scarcity management job specific, right? Small jobs that are light and quick. You can always find GPUs in the cloud. Big dedicated GPUs, much harder. You probably want to do that on-prem. Right? And so that's when companies like Rafay maybe can come in and help out a little bit, right? That's some of the stuff that you guys are working on directly to help customers better manage. What does that push-pull look like, and how do you help manage the kind of economics there?
Yeah, I think you're hinting at the repatriation thing that some people talk about these days, which again, maybe it's early days to see if it's true or not. But yes, there is a trend where people are saying, look, these GPUs cost me 50 grand. if I buy it once and I use it for 3 years, man, I'll save a lot of money. This is not $1,000 compute. It's much more expensive.
Right.
And doing that on-prem might be a cheaper way to do this long-term economically. They can depreciate it and all that if they have the ability to actually do that at some reasonable scale. You don't have to move everything on-prem, just that part.
Correct.
And then under the data residency, that's another nightmare for people. Like, how am I going to move a terabyte of data to a cloud? They don't know how to do it.
Or a petabyte of data. Right? When we're talking big models, we're talking tremendous amounts of data. We're not talking small amounts of data. And we're talking data that is structured, unstructured, and semi-structured. Right? You don't have the opportunity to say, no, I just want to move this tabular data from my database system. No, that's not going to get you there. Right? That doesn't teach the computer how to interpret what your business does. That's a tremendous amount of data in comparison, right? And so it's data speed, it's data gravity, it's all of those things that kind of play into. You need to have a kind of a multimodal approach, a multi-location approach to how you're going to handle this, and that means you're also not going to be able to do it using the cloud tools provided just by Amazon or just by Azure, right? Or just those that run locally. You're going to need something that allows you to manage this in a more holistic way.
Totally. Being able to like consume this stuff anywhere, including on-prem, that is the nirvana state, right? Like you're unblocked at that time, you're unshackled. And that is the experience that most of these organizations, I believe, are looking for, like not have any things that block them from doing the job, especially in a highly innovative area like this, where if you don't get access to stuff, I mean, you're stuck.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure, right? And you don't want to be in the back of the bus right now, right? You don't want to lose your competitive advantage. You don't necessarily want to be the first, but you certainly don't want to be the 56th.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So this has been great, Mohan. I love talking to you. I always enjoy it when you and I can get together and chat. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So this has been great.
Yeah.
So how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah. So I think I work for a company called Rafay Systems, so rafay.co. I'm on LinkedIn, Mohan Atreya. You can find me there, or on x.com or Twitter, Mohan Atreya again, and email at mohan@rafay.co. I love to. This is an area that I think is transformative, which is why I think love to talk about this. We are in it. I'm in it neck deep at this point of time. Sharing war stories, especially from a business side as well as a consumer side. I think, as you can see, it's touching everybody, right? Love it, Howard. And again, I enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed our convo and Carrie's as well at the coffee place. You opened my mind to things that I didn't think about. Always enjoy it. Yeah, appreciate
it. Fantastic. Well, this has been another episode of Discovering Disruptions in Tech. Hopefully you stuck with us and had as good a time as Mohan and I did. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, and if you'd like to be on an episode or like to see someone on an episode, please reach out. Thanks, and have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.